This is Audible.
Audible Originals presents A Love Like This, a short story. Written by Abubakar Adam Ibrahim. Performed by Georgina Elizabeth Okon.
A love like this. God knows I love that man. Bastard love. Wallahi. A love so deep, you could stack all the oceans of the world, one atop the other, and it would still not be as deep. And if you put them side by side, they would still not wrap themselves around the expanse of it. Half a century later, I still don't think I have scratched the surface of this love. But this love, it has scratched and engraved me with patterns and designs that have shaped my life. That 100 years from now, when they dig up my bones, they will find the markings of this love on. God knows I love that man. Bastard love. Wallahi. A love so deep, you could stack all the oceans of the world, one atop the other, and it would still not be as deep. And if you put them side by side, they would still not wrap themselves around the expanse of it. Half a century later, I still don't think I have scratched the surface of this love. But this love, it has scratched and engraved me with patterns and designs that have shaped my life. That 100 years from now, when they dig up my bones, they will find the markings of this love on them. I swear to God. My husband knows that I will never love him the way I loved Babayo, that the imprint of his love on my heart will never erase his. This is how God does things. Plant a seed so deep in your heart and let the devil cut it down, even before it blossoms and bears fruits. All you are left with in the end is the stump of a plant you will never reap from. I was a young woman when the seed was planted. I was a wild thing then, young and wild. I mean, you don't imagine I was born like this, old and shriveled, do you? Anyway, Babayo, handsome, shy man. At the time I met him, my parents had come to the inevitable conclusion that I was ungovernable and will probably remain so for the rest of my life. A lost cause, my mother said. And the sooner an unfortunate man married and tamed me, the better for the entire world. Also, she thought. You see, unlike my sisters, I was a rebel. I mean, I was the one who nearly chewed off a white man's thigh, gave the bastard a good gash to last him a lifetime, and remind him every day of the day he hit Baban Indo. Of course, it cost my father his job, but God knows I had no regrets whatsoever. I, Indo, the maverick, I was the one who became a professional dancer. And a bloody good one. I swear. God, I danced. Danced for the Sardauna and Sir Kashim Ibrahim. Dance for all these important men. Dance, that beautiful thing that brought Babayo waltzing into my heart at the Just Racecourse. There was a championship that day. I don't remember what it was called. Lots of people, lots of horses, lots and lots. That was the day Governor Kashim Ibrahim came to Jos to the racecourse. I saw all that crowd and said, Kai, yo, akeyinta. When we danced at the opening, me and the other girls, you should have seen how they cheered, how they called for an encore. I can still hear the applause as I speak to you. It is ringing, ringing in my ear. After the dance, Faith carried me and literally delivered me onto Babayo's lap. You see, we got away from the podium as quickly as we could because we knew some pimp would try to contract us to entertain some of the dignitaries. But I wanted to see the race horses, so I got into the crowd, jostling for a good position when I stepped on someone's toes. I turned to apologize, but the man's frown turned into a smile the moment he saw my face. I remember what he said to me as if it were yesterday. Wallahi! He said, you danced, and I could have sworn I saw angel dust rising from your feet. Sweet words, I swear. But I hoped he wasn't going to ask me to dance as compensation for stepping on his toes. I would have called him Dan Iska and walked away. But he said, in the sweetest voice, you don't need to dance to seduce me. He said it as if it was the most natural thing to say, as if he had been saying it to me all his life. And there he was, this small boy, wallahi. I mean, not small, but he was younger than the sort of men I was used to. In my mind, I was like saying, Buhunuba. There is a case today because I never liked anyone on first sight like that. Beautiful man. Ah, those times. Beautiful times. Beautiful horses. I haven't seen horses in a while. In all the years I have lived in Kano, I have never been to see the Durbar. Could you believe that? I can't stand those beasts, lovely as they are. They remind me of Babayo, of the race course, of our first meeting. We kept whispering into each other's ears and laughing as those beastly hooves thundered across the lines. The only time we stopped was to see the legendary Damfilinge race. That horse was magnificent. They said it was the fastest horse that ever lived. The way he trotted, the arrogance with which he let the other horses gain over him, only to surge ahead later. He was just beautiful. And Babayo couldn't stop talking about it. People cheered with such euphoria. They would jump and fall on the ground. I tell you, the only thing jumping that mattered that day was my heart. Wallahi! Jumped like it was some tantani ball. Jumped so much I feared everyone would hear it bouncing above the noise of the horses and the cheering. So we left before the race finished, before even Sir Kashim Ibrahim did. After all, we had seen Damfilinge race. We could die happy. Away from the crowd we went, into the woodlands behind the racecourse, filled with neem trees, guavas, and atili trees. Babayo even climbed a tree to fetch me guavas. Told me how his father had first brought him to the racecourse when he was a child, and how he had loved it since, and how, since he had been coming there all those years, I was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Me and Damfilinge. I mean, it's not like bigger, older, wealthier men hadn't said that to me before. He wasn't even wealthy. Kwandala he didn't even have that day. But he gave me his heart. And the fruit he plucked from the trees. He was just a bloody teacher anyway. I didn't think it would amount to anything, this thing we were starting. But I couldn't think of anything else that day. I couldn't even sleep because I wanted to see him the next day. In the morning, there was a song on my lips. Narambadas Damfilinge. You can imagine my shock when I looked up and there he was, standing in the distance in his white kaftan, watching me. I said, Kutuma, what are you doing here so early? I knew then that whatever it was that was starting between us, it was going to totally consume us. I just knew it would be lit, whether it burnt like a candle or burnt like a bonfire. Our love was a nest of whispers woven under the thundering hooves of horses. The racecourse became our home, the place we went to watch the horses and talk about untenable dreams and fantasies. Sometimes, when there were no races, we would sit in the stands and talk. Other times, he would come to watch my dance practice, and when I finished, he would walk me home. He anchored me. Never once complained about my wild ways, but being with him made me want to be better, to be my best. And I discovered that for him, I loved being good. God knows he loved me. He became a part of me and me a part of him, so much so that we were only identified with each other. Everyone, even my siblings, called me Ndon Babayo, and he was Babayona Indo. But you see, there was the little matter of Alhaji Basiru, the accursed bastard. He was older, had money, and the approval of my parents. They said, this girl is a proper shegia. She needs a proper man to tame her rebellious spirit. Even if my spirit were an animal, Alhaji Basiru was not the minder to tame it. My spirit is that of an eagle, and Alhaji Basiru was nothing but a bloody lizard. How would a lizard tame an eagle? Eh? That man has no honor. Bloody murderer. He's going straight to hell by God's grace. God forgive me. But I would drag him there myself if I have to. Wallahi kuwa. Anyway, Babayo was a stallion, but my parents were never comfortable with him. They knew I had never loved a man like that. Or maybe they didn't understand the power of love over reason. Simple, practical folks. But they understood this rebellious spirit of mine would do what it would always do. They barred me from seeing Babayo. Of course, that wasn't going to work. So they just set a wedding date for me and that lizard. I swear to God, those people, if they had had the money to prepare for a wedding, they would have set the date for sooner. But the lizard was ready, made his money from the tin mines and was eager to marry a fresh young woman to dance all kinds of dance on his bed. Shege! He should come and get it. Dankwal Ubanshi. There we were in a conundrum. Me and my man loving, my parents scheming, Alhaji Basiru raving that some other man was courting his fiancée. They made such a fuss. Went to harass Babayo's parents, the poor folks. Harassed them so much, they forbade Babayo from seeing me. But how do you keep a stallion from running and an eagle from soaring, eh? Tell me that. My parents took to locking me up in the room I shared with my sister. When Babayo came to formally ask for my parents' permission to court me, this silly man, they chased him off. My father fetched his machete, and I have been wondering ever since what the deal was with parents of girls and machetes. I have never found the answer. Anyway, Babayo didn't have money, like that lizard. He had only started work as a teacher, but he was a decent man, had good intentions towards me, and he truly loved me. So he would come by the house in the night, sneak into the dark alley and huddle by my window in that blasted just cold. All that trouble, and he still couldn't see my face. There was an ugly wooden panel between us, but he would stand in that darkness, being eaten by the mosquitoes, and whisper assurances to me. God knows I missed seeing his face in those days and weeks. I missed him so bad. I wanted to swing an axe at that bloody window panel. I started whispering to him the idea of eloping. He was too much of a gentleman to suggest it, and somehow he had it in his head that he could convince our parents to let us marry. His parents thought I was too wild for him, and I was a dancer. They had high hopes for him, as I did. But they didn't think a dancer would be a befitting wife. In their eyes, a dancer was only a harlot with a different name. I talked him into it, insisted even. If I hadn't, perhaps he would have lived. By that time, I remember things were getting interesting politically. Ojukwu and Gowon were beating the drums of war. Talks of breaking up the country, as if it were a piece of biscuits children were squabbling over, were all over the place. As were the riots. Igbos were being killed in the north. Northerners were fleeing Igbo land. Madness, I tell you, madness. But we were young and didn't care that the country was going to the hyenas. If we had thought about that, we probably would not have thought about going anywhere, especially Lagos. But we just wanted to get away and to love. I thought that would be infinitely better than all the hatred being peddled around at the time. It was cold the night we escaped. I remember the satisfaction I felt when Babayo broke the barricades my father had installed on the windows. I remember the fear and excitement I felt when he helped me out the window. My sister had promised to hold her tongue until morning, to give us as much of a head start as possible. The Shegia, may Allah rest her soul, could not. And perhaps if there hadn't been too many people at the station trying to get on the train, traveling south to escape the impending war, we could have got away long before my parents and that slimy lizard came running to the station just as the train was pulling out of it. I could see them through the window, sprinting like the devil was running away with their lives, their kaftans billowing in the cold morning breeze. If the circumstances had been any different, I swear I would have laughed. Wallahi kuwa. We held our breath, as if they could catch up with the train and pull it back to the station. Somehow, the train pulled out of Jos, tucking down the hills. Babayo took my hand and squeezed. Then it hit us that we had really done it, that we had eloped, that there was no going back one way or the other. I held Babayo's hand and never let go. Even though I should have been elated, something in my heart, a sense of foreboding, kept stirring. He tried to say things to calm me, to make me laugh. He made jokes, new ones and old ones that had cracked me up before. Nothing he tried worked. So he said to me, Indo, do you want us to go back? Do you want us to turn back? Ever so considerate. He suggested that if we got to the next stop and I didn't feel sure about it, then we could get off the train and head back. But I knew that if we did, my father would have him arrested immediately. I would never let that happen. I had no idea that Alhaji Basiru, that slimy son of a dog, had jumped in a car and at that very moment was driving like a possessed baboon towards the next stop, the station at Kafanchan.
Indo. It was the way he called her name, exactly how Babayo used to call it, that made the old woman look up at Lalo. If she could have seen his eyes, see into him, she would have seen memories sprouting like reeds on the fertile plains of his mind. She would have seen that as she spoke, his heart swelled